There are some smells that defy definition, sensory experiences that overload my little brain with the sheer bliss of it all. Everyone has a certain smell that garners a similar sensation: freshly cut grass, pan-fried bacon, Michael Cera, or if you're a right filthy bugger, the scent of your own egregious farts. But for me, there is one glorious smell that outweighs them all: the smell of a brand spanking new video game case and its manual. I'm not sure if those things relate with cocaine or something, but every time I bought a new game, I would run to the car, tear it open and sniff that shit like a dice. Not a single page was safe from the inevitable sniffing of it all. It was addictive, beautiful and shameful in a way that can only be experienced for yourself. As the years have gone by, the muscle memory from those shameful years has remained, but unfortunately that specific and perhaps unhealthy scent of bliss the manual provided you with has not endured. You see, when you open a video game these days, that's if you even buy physical copies anymore, you're not even gifted with that once beautiful manual. Nowadays, it's the scent of disappointment that permeates every single empty, soulless little case, and it breaks my heart. No game has been more guilty of this in recent times than The Last Guardian, a game that was at the very top of my I can't wait to sniff the shit out of list back when it was originally unveiled in 1974. When I finally got my hands in the game, I actually left it on the shelf for 3 years because at that point my nostrils had moved on to other loves. But after those 3 years, I took it off my shelf and pried it open like a rabid Indiana Jones as the muscle memory from years of sniffing that shit came rushing over me. But what I was greeted with was an image that has been imprinted onto the very eyeballs that first processed the overwhelming disappointment. There was nothing. Not even the half-arsed control scheme sheet that has become the norm. All there was the disc, and 2 arms that will forever be left to hug nothing but the air surrounding the empty space where its partner should have been. But how could it be? How could something once considered as vital to the whole experience as a manual be thrown to the wayside?
What are you on about? Manuals never mattered.
They never mattered, you say? Well, allow me to debunk an argument put forward by my very self.
What are you doing?
Checking out some fine manuals. Spider-Man PS1. This was the worst manual I could find for my PS1 collection, and it was still good enough to warrant bringing to the toilet and read in between gaming sessions. In fact, it still reeks a little bit like shit. Anyway, this manual is ram-packed with gameplay tips and character bios to help inform you of the universe you are about to get absorbed in. Harvest Moon back to nature. One of my all-time favourite PS1 games, and a game whose manual is actually intrinsic to the whole experience. You see, aside from the normal, tried and tested gameplay tips and tour guide that the manual provides, it actually features a calendar informing you of every single day of the year. Without it, you would be beyond fucked socially, because you'd be that guy who forgets everyone's birthday and special events. And a game is meant to help you escape the societal shame of reality, not bring it back to the forefront of your mind. Also, the notes section of my manual is actually riddled with recipes that the 10-year-old me wrote down frantically. I think I was actually far more productive back then. Metal Gear Solid. This manual is the creme de la Kojima of gaming manuals. From the gorgeous artwork to the stupidly necessary character bios and backstory, this manual had an overwhelming power to hype me up to play the game. I even brought this into school to read during break time. Hell, directly after recording this footage, I sniffed the shit out of that manual and fired up the game. The PS2 era continued the trend of fantastic manuals. For example, the tourist guide stylings of the Grand Theft Auto games, the dense skateboarding encyclopedia that came with Tony Hawk's Underground, the hauntingly beautiful manual that accompanied Silent Hill 2, and the big mama of all manuals, the Metal Gear Solid 3 manual. Look at that sexy little bugger. Extensive character bios, check. Excessive gameplay tutorials and tips, check. Stunning comic book style descriptions of gameplay, check. Timeline of the entire series leading up to the events of the game, check. Jesus, they really don't make them like they used to. The PS3 era is when something just didn't seem right. Manuals weren't the kind, knowledgeable guy they once were. Grand Theft Auto 4 and Metal Gear Solid 4 came out of the gate strong with great little manuals. But as the generation went on, the manuals became thinner, lazier, and seemed like they were coming from a place of contractual obligation, and not love. So when I reflect on opening up The Last Guardian, I can't help but just feel a little bit sad. There is something magical about buying a new game and perusing through the manual on the way home, the very first sweet taste of the experience to come. It was a vital component of the gaming experience, poring over that delightful little book in anticipation for the game itself, soaking up all the lore, gameplay tips, game mechanics, character bios and controls, before finally getting to grips with the game itself. The tactile sensation of the paper, and that intoxicating smell of a freshly opened video game box. They represented a tangible and intimate connection to the virtual worlds and characters I was so fond of, a little piece of their world that existed in mine. And with so many different forms of media existing purely in that virtual cloud in the sky, I feel like something's been lost in the transition, that feeling of holding a little piece of that world in your own hands. And yes, a lot of the information manuals used to contain can be found online, and yes, not including them saved money and arguably unnecessary use of paper. I honestly feel that intimacy and tangible connections are slowly being erased from society. I mean, I would love for each game to at least include a digitally published manual that would act as some kind of happy in-between. It would be like a beautiful handwritten letter that's scanned and then emailed. But it does exist. I don't know where I'm going with this. I feel like, ultimately, I just miss manuals. I just miss having a little piece of each game that I could go through at my own little pace. It felt like a handwritten letter or a printed photo album. It's something that allows intimacy for the passionate. Thanks for watching.
Ah, oh, that's hot. That's hot.